GMs hate him for this one weird trick, especially if they're trying to... So the whole story of how I won the Grand Melee at GenCon in 2024 starts with the Minnesota tribe, and I had a benefactor out there who decided they wanted to bring me along, and that person knows who they are, so I thank them very much for that. It was a wonderful experience. And one of the things that I was very interested in doing was competing in the Trial of Bloodright, and they had a Grand Melee that was going on the day before. And it was kind of cool because you could win the Grand Melee, and then if you didn't have a ticket to enter the Trial of Bloodright, you could use this win at the Grand Melee as a way to actually get in and play. So it was a lot like the lore, and I loved that idea. So I was like, okay, I want to do this, but my benefactor said, well, let's get you a ticket for the Bloodright tournament anyway, just in case. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's cool, and I really wanted to play in the Grand Melee because I wanted to see how well I could do. You see, every year here in town, we have essentially what amounts to a Grand Melee, just with different themes every year for our Christmas game. And I mean, I've played in several of those. We've had 11 to date, and of those, I have won 4 of them. And one of them was in a field where there was me with 8 other players. So I thought, you know, okay, I've got some experience here. This is something I feel like I could put up a good showing and just have a good time and just see what I'm capable of, right? I did not expect to win it. So I get up there, I meet the GM, and he was there, and I met him, and he explained the rules to me, and I says, okay, fine, I can get with that. So I walk over to the table, right, and they've got this slew of record sheets just like sitting in front of me of all the different things that you could choose, and the miniature was there and with them, and I thought, okay, let me just go get a look, see at what the field is. And I'm looking through, and it's all clans, so I'm like looking for storm crows, I'm looking for things that I like, and believe ye, there were plenty of storm crows in that group. I saw, I think, at least 2 or 3 variants maybe. It was a while back, so I can't remember exactly, but there was more than one. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I've got this, and I just keep going through, right? Because I figure, well, if I'm gonna look at them, I might as well look at them all. And I get to the very last, and I mean, this one was very bottom row all the way to the very far right. So I would have had to scan literally all of the rows of record sheets until I got to that particular one. And it was a Griffin 2C Model 8. Now, for those of you unfamiliar at home or the uninitiated, the Griffin 2C8 is stupid. It's 6'9", motherfucking 9. It has no business being that fast. It just doesn't. When you can jump, okay, for 9 hexes in any direction every turn with half the heat and always be pulling a +4 defense, that is dumb. And you know why it's dumb? It should not have been in that format, and I knew it just like that. This is the mech that will win the game. That's what I said. And you know what? It had an ER large laser in the head, so the whole rule that I had to follow of I had to take a shot every single turn, well, when you're in a field of 15 other people, that's not difficult when you have a gun like that can fire across like 2 map sheets. Okay, so anywhere I am on this board, I guarantee you I'm gonna have a target. I'll fire at that guy. And right now, I'm just trying to do as much damage as I can because this thing doesn't have a whole heck of a lot of other stuff until you get up into the closer ranges. And that one weapon was the one particular thing that I knew I could rely on the entire time, and I can always use this. So that's what I was going for. I'm just picking targets to see who I might get the lucky shot on. Sometimes I would hit, sometimes I would miss. It goes back and forth. Now, the entire ass time that I'm doing this, because I'm not stupid. I'm sorry. If you have me in this tournament that I have paid to be in, whether or not I paid for it is not relevant. Somebody had to pay for it. Money had to exchange hands for me to be here. And if that, especially if my friend had bought that for me, if I went into the whole thing just thinking, that would be like a big disrespect in my opinion. Like, that's his hard-earned money. I want to go in there and I want to play as hard as I can, right? So I'm doing my usual thing where I'm trying to plot like 2-3 turns ahead because it's just how I play. And as I go, the game master just continually gets more and more aggravated with me because I'm jumping for 9 from wood to wood or wood to partial cover, And there were very few times, comparatively, where I was stuck out in the open, and even when I was, it was just because I couldn't jump that far. The move I wanted to make would take me 2 jumps to do. But I was still pulling a 4 defense, and when you have a field of mostly 3 or worse gunners, you're looking at 3 gunner on the run, target defense of 4. If you're at mid-range, you better hope that's the range you're at, because you're looking, or short, because otherwise you're looking at 9s and 11s, and if you're anything outside of that. So there was a whole section of the map that just would never be able to shoot at me strictly because of distance. So I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, okay, I don't feel terribly threatened because, yeah, there's a lot of people, but like, not a lot of them are going to really be shooting at me, because I promise they're going to look behind me, they're going to see that red 4, and they're going to say, you know what, the hell with it, I'd rather shoot at literally anyone else that has a lower defense, because at the very least, then I have a shot to actually hit the motherfucker, right? Well, speed is armor, as they say. And as we're going, he's getting more and more aggravated, right? People are dying left and right. It happens after a few turns. And he finally was like, you know, I'm going to have to start insisting that you get up into the fight. Well, there's people all over me. Exactly what do you define as being in the fight? There's mech warriors all over. It's not like anywhere on this entire 4-map board section that I could be where I wouldn't be surrounded by enemies, because there's a lot of them. So what exactly do you consider to be in the fight? I got nothing. And I kept making moves, and he kept getting pissed, and he was like, you know, you da-da-da-da-da, and I was like, what? I'm shooting. Yeah, well, you could have made better moves, and I'm looking at him like, are you fucking shitting me right now? Do you expect me to take this teeny tiny griffin that I'm telling you comes apart in 2 or 3 hits from these clanner guns anyway, and just jump right smack dab in the middle of this gung-ho clam bake where everybody's just, I can still shoot the guy, I can just pick which one I want. That just sounds like smart tactics to me, and at that point, then, and fucking only then, did I care about whether or not I won the entire thing, because now I was mad, and I'm gonna explain to you why I was mad. See, this wasn't exactly strictly for me. When I did it, I was doing it for my friend Marcos, who a lot of you know passed away from cancer at an early age, and I wanted to go in there and just perform as best I can. So when I saw the Griffin, which was his favorite mech, the regular one, but this was still a derivative of, I thought, you know, oh, that's fitting. You know, I'm here to do this for this person, and I got picked 3rd in the list. So I mean, I had that ability to get it. So, and I don't even think that like the vast majority of people who were looking through these sheets had any idea what they were looking at, because I had one guy come up to me and he was thinking about picking it. And you got to remember, bro, I'm like sitting right there like a vulture, right? Like a, and he says, oh, heavy medium lasers add +1 to hit, right? Yes, they do. I answered. I wasn't lying. I wasn't. He asked a question. I told him the truth, right? Okay. So that was what it was. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, I happen to have this machine, and it's a Griffin. So several times after this confrontation with the GM, I'm sitting there in my head going, Marcos, buddy, I need you now, man. I need you now. And I'm wandering around the table because I'm pacing like a poker player who's got his chips all in, right? And I'm just nervous, but I'm just playing as hard as I can. Like, I'm looking at all the angles. I figured out what my next move was going to be. And then after that, I knew it was going to take however many minutes to get to my action. So I already knew. And anyway, I'm moving around, and people start dropping left and right, okay? And we get down to the final 4, and there were me and 3 other guys. One of the guys that I can't remember his name at the moment was like what I would consider to be an elite player. Like, you could tell this dude was there to win it, and winning it, you know, mattered, and he thought about what he was going to do. So I think he was putting in a lot more effort than most when he walked into the game. And while I was putting in that kind of effort in the late game, like, I definitely wasn't thinking about that when I walked in. So you see the difference there. I feel like he was definitely focused on that as a goal, which I'm not necessarily saying is a negative thing. I just think that was the goal. And there was another guy, now his name I remember, he was going by the handle D3, and he was cool. He, I feel like, was like me and just kind of there, and I had done some work, and so had he, so he was doing fine, and we were both in that same position. I can't remember what he had, though. And then we had this one other guy, again, whose name I can't remember, and he was also what I would consider to be a serious player, but his attitude was a little more laid back. So these are the 4 people that we're left with, and I think D3 goes down first, and then the other super elite player goes down after that. And then it's just down to me and the last guy. And I mean, we are just circling the entire board, left, right, and front and center. And all it is just how many times can I hit you with this ER large laser? That's it. Just how many times? And anyway, I finally got him, and I would just hit him sporadically here and there. And then I finally got him in one place, and he's marking off the dots, and he goes, and that's, as he throws his pencil down, a dead mech. And I was like, so you're telling me I won it? And yep. And so I was like, oh, well, that's not exactly what I had intended to do when I walked in the place. But now here's the interesting thing. While I was playing, the friend who had brought me out was also playing in the same game, and we had a conversation later to the effect of when they were knocked out of the game, they stood back and watched and observed, and they noticed the GM rearranging the cards, like before he would put, like, looking at them and changing the order of them. And the initiative was handled by these playing cards. So he would flip over a card, and the GM would say, okay, Hobbs, it's your turn. That was me. And I would go. And then he would flip over another card, and then D3, it's your turn. And then that would be who goes. But, like, my friend, and I was totally not looking at this, because why? Why would I look for that? I would definitely not expect to hear this story. Okay? So I would not have been thinking to look. And I was told, like I say later, that there was some fuckery afoot there. And they told me that they noticed that the final 4, except for me, I think 2 of them were like good friends. And the one guy that I described as like a super elite player, like he had won them before. And I think at least one of these guys already had like an actual canon blood name. So they were going into it with those accolades on their jacket already, and I was just, the plucky underdog going for whatever it was I could get, what scraps would fall off the table, and it just turned out that it all added up over time to be King of Meat Mountain. I'm proud of that one. I didn't think that before I said it. So, okay, we go to the Trial of Bloodright, right? Okay, it's the next day. And I had this ticket, and it was $50, I think it was, to get into that. And one of the guys that had lost, I think it was D3, I walked up to him and I was like, here, you take my ticket for this, and then you get in. And so he was able to play. Now, this is why I, again, bring up the whole situation of reordering the cards from earlier. Because when I walk into the Trial of Bloodright tournament, guess who's running the game? Now, I'm going to include a detail here. After the Grand Melee was over, I took this man to the side, and I stood behind one of those stand-up banners with him, and I looked him dead in the face, and I told him, I am here today to play in this tournament in honor of my dead friend who taught me how to play this game. Just remember that not everybody here is playing for the same reasons. And he was real apologetic after that. Let's just say I got pretty emotional about it, so he probably felt a whole heck of a lot of regret at the time. Who's to say I'll never speak to him again because he's been... Anyway, at least that's what I heard. So I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. Let's include that. So, okay, we're going into day 2, right? Or this is like, what, day 3 of the con or some shit like that, or day 4, whatever it was. No, day 3. And I think, and so I see him, he's the one running the whole shebang for the Trial of Bloodright tournament, right? And he was, again, real friendly this time, after that conversation that we'd had the day before. And I thought, okay, I'm into giving second chances because Lord knows I've been given plenty of those in my lifetime, so I'm not against the idea. And so I was friendly, and I'm back for some more, woohoo! And anyway, we go into the selection process again, and I'm looking for mechs, and I don't remember which mech that I saw that I wanted. I just remember what I got. It was like an Executioner E. I don't know. It's got like a couple of large lasers. I'd have to look it up. It's not that important, and I'll tell you why in a second. But the thing was, the selection process was again handled by the playing cards, as it had been in the previous. So he would flip over the card and be like, Hobbs, it's your turn to go pick a mech. Guess who picked almost dead-ass last? Did you guess me? Now, it's not that it mattered to me that much, but I was still able to pick something beefy. Like I say, I got an Executioner, for fuck's sake. I mean, what more could you want? It's big, it's got some decent guns. I think I had some missiles on there. I can't remember, but I'd have to look it up. But you know what? I'll just do that right now. Yeah, it was the E. I was right. Ha ha, I remembered. My brain still worked. Fuck you, haters. So I had that, right? And I was happy with it. You got some ATMs, you got your high explosive ammo, you've got your ER larges, so we're only playing on one neoprene battle mat, which is the equivalent of 2 standard map sheets, so it ain't like I won't be able to shoot the motherfucker no matter where he is, right? And my opponent is in a Sojourner for this particular game. And what I remember about it is it was on the lunar map, which anybody who knows me knows I hate playing on the lunar map. Who wants to fight on the moon? So anyway, that was part of the initial questions, is whether or not we wanted to have full vacuum, and we all chose no, at least for that one. So we were fighting on the moon, but I guess there was an atmosphere on that moon. Who knows how that works? So anyway, we're shooting at each other, but like, this person would take probably twice the length of the Jeopardy theme to make his moves. And oh yeah, I'm so scared of this Executioner. Ooh. And I'm just sitting here going, bruh, you're in a Sojourner, man. Like, you've got options, but that's about what you got. Like, I've got these, you've got that. We're supposed to be in here fighting. We're not supposed to be in here trying to pit maneuver and make sure that we all make the perfectly correct moves. You see what I'm saying? And the judge, the tournament organizer, our friend, had to come over and mediate something that had to do with him. And I can't remember what it was, but he did have to come over. And again, he ruled against me. It's just funny how these things happen. And, see, it's also relevant for me to bring this up because I was told by my benefactor, who was also playing in the tournament, that in his game, he found a just tactically perfect place to stand and fire at his enemy. It was behind a level 1 hill. All his guns were available, and the enemy was nothing but in front of him. He didn't have to do anything. He just stood there. And the tournament organizer, our friend, said, yeah, you can't do that. And I think it was because you're either the hunter or the hunted, one of the two. That was a rule they came up with at the beginning of the game. The hunter had to do certain things, and the hunted had to do others. But it was because of one of those two things that if you stand there, I'm going to cancel the game on you or kick you off or like you forfeit or whatever. So my friend had to move out of this spot that, why on earth would you move out of it if you just have this perfect pillbox position where you've got your forward cone of fire and there's nowhere for your enemy to go and he has to come at you in order to do anything to you? Why would you move until all of a sudden that cover didn't matter anymore? That makes no sense. Why would you force someone to do that, especially if they were standing in a place where they could make plenty of weapon attacks without having to be like, oh, I'm hiding. Now, I understand if you want to get annoyed with me because I'm jumping all over the board, or if somebody else was purposely hiding, yeah, we know who does that. That's one thing if you take issue with that. But that's not what my friend was doing. All that was happening was they were standing in a spot where they knew that 5s and 9s would mean nothing on the hit chart once you took a weapon hit, and that they could fire with impunity. How many times do we do this? It's called park 'em and bark 'em. That's what I always tell everybody. You take your big dogs, you set them behind a fence, and you just let them bark all god-dang day long. I do it with the awesome all the time. It's one of my favorite things to do with an awesome. And I feel like this tactic, whether or not you know it by that name, is just one of those things that everybody knows intrinsically. You set somebody behind a level 1 hill and just be like, pew-pew, here's my missiles, pew-pew, here's my PPCs, whatever the hell it is, my large lasers, whatever it is that you got that can fire a decent amount of distance, or your autocannon 5s, 2s, those will fire a ways. So everybody knows this tactic. And I mean, maybe if you're a first year green bean, you wouldn't know, but that could be excused. I'm talking about anybody with a vet card, okay? You whip that thing out, you should know the park 'em and bark 'em, even if you don't know it by that name. So I'm saying the guy that ran the tournament had to have known this tactic. Like, I just wouldn't believe at all that you get into that position without knowing what a park and bark is, even if you don't know it by that name. That's how I won the trophy. Despite trying to get cheated, and despite not being able to do a true Cinderella story of going from 1 out of 16 to wild card winner to blood name winner, I still think it was a decent showing. I mean, if this person had anything to do with the opponent that I played, who took forever to make their moves, and the rulings against me and things like that, I don't understand why you would do that. And I don't know what would possess you to even think about doing something like that. So that's just my opinion. You can tell me what you think in the comments. This all may or may not be true. As I say, it's hearsay, so you can't sue me. It was what I was told by my friend, and I feel like my friend just has no reason to lie. And when you hear these things and then you try to reconcile that information against the actual behavior of the person, either in situ or the next day at the next game, it does add an extra layer to the onion of context, don't you think? And if anybody wants to know what I would have chosen, because the blood name that was available for this particular bout was Kerensky, I would have chosen Samson Kerensky. That would have been the name of the character. And the reason for that is, as I said, I was entering it for my friend, Marcos. And when we were kids, Marcos and I both had our own little player characters that we used for games of Mech Warrior and things like that. And his character's name was George Samson, you see? And mine, I just used my name because I liked my name. He gave it to me. He's the one who came up with Tuctavian, not me. And I keep it now as a memory of him. Every time I say that name, I am speaking into existence this thing that my friend made for me and then gave to me. And a big shout out to the trophy maker, Mr. James Ryan of Starcore Industries, the official trophy maker of GenCon for 2024. But anyway, that's all I gotta say on that. I hope you have a happy and safe New Year's for 2025, and remember, if you're gonna quit anything in the coming year, quit being a bitch.
Unit 25, this is HQ. What is your location?
This is 25.
That's on fact. I was sign stamp delivered. Queen Rat fucking entertainment out of this bitch. Like